Welcome to the Multifamily Women podcast. I'm your host, Carrie Antrim. My guest today is Katie Hayward. She has built her career leading marketing at the intersection of connectivity and multifamily housing. She's the VP of Marketing at Elauwit Connection, a community-managed Wi-Fi provider that went public in November, one of the only publicly traded companies fully dedicated to community Wi-Fi. Katie is passionate about AI and business productivity and considers herself an engineer within her RevOps department. She's an operator who builds systems, not just campaigns or content. Katie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Carrie. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you. So listen, your team sent us a song, actually. So we have something fun. We did something with that. And I'd like you to just take a quick minute and watch this video.
Popping every corner's got it from the lobby to the top floor. Signal never quits. Stream, scroll, play. Cause the speed just hits. Got a question, call, don't sweat. Real voice there in a heartbeat. Bet under 30 seconds you're talking it through. Human first help right here for you. Hey, Elauwit, we're on it. Fast Wi-Fi everywhere you want it. Game networking, living, streaming all night. Connect so easy and it just feels right. Owners, residents, everybody set. Easy, reliable, Elauwit. No dead zones, just green lights glow. Moving, logged on, and you're good to go. Home feels smarter the second you sit. Life runs smooth when it's Elauwit. Oh yeah, Elauwit, we're on it. Fast Wi-Fi everywhere you want it. Game networking, living, streaming all night. Connect so easy and it just feels right. Owners, residents, everybody set. Easy, reliable, Elauwit.
I love it.
Now, you guys
And there
are
were
the...
llamas, too.
What was that?
There were llamas, and I
Yes.
appreciate the llamas.
Oh,
most of
yes,
all.
you'll get to meet them this year as well. That was so fun. Now, how did it come about that you guys have a song?
This kind of goes hand in hand with my obsession of AI. So I spent probably a few hours prompting, and it's actually really difficult to get AI to say Elauwit correctly. So there was a lot of massaging that went on there. But ultimately, we created that song. We have a whole album, actually, that we have
you
internally.
do?
Yeah, and I love it. And I make my kids listen to it when we're on, road trips, and I hear it in my sleep. I love it.
That is hilarious. Well, I love that your team sent it over. I think it was on Spotify, right? I was like, this is kind of
it's
legit.
Spotify, on Apple Music, wherever you get, the music.
That's
We're
so
on
funny.
it by Elauwit Connection.
Okay, I love that. That is hilarious. And you guys are the
Yeah.
official Wi-Fi sponsor of this year's Multifamily Women Summit, which is great because there are a lot of selfies that are happening and videos being taken and immediately uploaded to Instagrams and LinkedIn's and all that stuff. So that's wonderful. We're super to have you happy to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you. It's our pleasure to be sponsoring.
So you came into multifamily from outside the industry. What surprised you most about how owners and operators think about connectivity?
Yeah, I think what surprised me was how personal connectivity is here. So I've worked in a lot of industries, many of them B2B, including enterprise business telecom. But there, when technology fails, it's work that slows down. And here, when technology fails within a community, it's someone's home. So it's their job, it's their kids' homework, their telehealth appointment. So the stakes are just a lot more human. And I was also surprised and delighted, as a marketer, to find an industry that's in flux. So until relatively recent history, the internet has been the residents' business. It's been their bill, their router, their on-hold music. And so now with managed Wi-Fi, it's cool to be watching communities take ownership of that experience, that internet experience, and turn that into something that they control, to the benefit of the residents and their on-site teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And so listeners heard in my intro, you guys went public in November. Congratulations on that. That's very exciting. Give us a deep dive on Elauwit. Like, what do you do? How are you helping? How are you making lives better in multifamily?
Yeah. Absolutely. So Elauwit's a community managed Wi-Fi provider. So in plain terms, we design and build the network, and then we provide ongoing managed support specifically in the community setting. So every resident is covered from day one in a managed Wi-Fi setup, and there's one team accountable for keeping it running going forward. And why that matters so much, I think, is it comes down to who this model is better for. And I really do believe managed Wi-Fi is genuinely better for everyone involved. So it's better for the residents who get reliable internet immediately on move-in day, from their apartment to the mailroom, property wide. And they get real human support instead of a giant provider's on hold music. It's better for on-site teams who then, stop being the front line for IT calls. And it's better for owners, of course, because connectivity, moves from the resident's expense over to the property's ledger, where it becomes a real line of income, and therefore lifts the value of the asset.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. I mean, especially for residents moving in, they have so many things to worry about, turning all these things on, making sure everything works. To be able to just step in and not lose that connectivity at all during their move-in process, all of that, and then just have it ready, that's a great amenity.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
Yeah. So you call yourself an engineer within your RevOps department as an operator who builds systems. What does that look like day to day?
Yeah, I think there's kind of a shift in vocabulary that's happening in the industry and marketing in general. So you look at companies like Clay, and they have go-to-market engineers, and I think that's because there's a shift in just kind of what's expected on a day-to-day, and I think that's the right direction. So on the day-to-day, that means I build things. I'm not just briefing someone else on what to build anymore. I'm in our CRM creating custom objects, workflows. I'm coding calculators, coding interactive landing pages. I'm running the campaigns and creating all the reporting on top of it. I feel really passionate about the fact that technical literacy belongs everywhere in a business now, especially now. It's been that way for several years, but especially now, it belongs everywhere, not just in the IT department.
And are there skills that you think you have that led you to be so proactive in building these things? I know that might not be typical for a marketer to actually be in the weeds, like building and automating and doing all these cool things. What did you do leading up that led you to this role?
Yeah, I think my most powerful skill is my curiosity, but I do have an eclectic professional background. So I started the first 5 years of my career were in the agency setting. So I was a copywriter and associate creative director. And then the next 5 years after that is where it got really fun, and I was able to work across marketing and IT and mergers and acquisitions in a multi-BU managed services portfolio. And that's really where I got the opportunity to, if there was a problem across the company over all of these different business units, and I'm working at the corporate level, and there's nobody to necessarily fix it. It was my curiosity compelling me to step in and learn how to migrate a system, how to build a CRM, how to build a applicant tracking system, whatever needed done. So, but I think that's the case with a lot of people, maybe not to that extent where they haven't been given the opportunity to work across multiple business units and put that into action. But I think anybody who's super curious, has the ability to be, learning anything that maybe it's not technically in their lane. And certainly AI is enabling that, which I'm happy to get into a little bit more later.
Yeah, absolutely. So residents rank internet as a top amenity, but some owners still treat it as a utility. Where's the difference in mindset there?
Yeah, so a utility is something that it has to work, right? And then an amenity is something that you market, something that your residents really want. Internet is definitely both of those things. But if you stop there, I think you're kind of underselling it. It's really infrastructure. So much of what comes next is built on top of it. How people work, how they connect, how a building runs, all of the prop tech that's being invested in now. And that's why I think it does belong in the plan for a new development, the same way power does or plumbing does. And then, of course, in an existing building that might not have managed Wi-Fi yet, if you were to get it, it lifts the asset value because it's something you can charge for. And then once it's managed, it becomes a great lever for improving the resident experience there because an owner then has direct control over the quality of the network on the property. So I think when you treat it as infrastructure and when you plan for it and prioritize it, it really does become your best amenity. But it's not just utility and not just an amenity. I think it's infrastructure first and then best amenity second.
Yeah, no, I love that. And the fact that you mentioned, you can control the quality of the service. I mean, I've got kids, if it goes out for a minute, they're up in arms. Mom, what's happening? But even more than that, people who work from home or, depending on that, like you said, telehealth appointments, all of these things we depend on secure, safe, reliable internet every day. So that's a big thing.
Yep. Absolutely.
So walk us through what move-in day looks like for a resident on your network.
Yeah, it's just a lot less painful than it used to be. So the traditional way, you move in and you're surrounded by boxes and you're on hold waiting to schedule a router to be delivered, anytime tomorrow between dusk and dawn.
Yes.
It's frustrating. And so now with managed Wi-Fi, that's not the case. You get your keys, you scan a QR code once you get into your apartment and you're online, and that's it. There's no installer window. There's no waiting a week. There's no buying a router or then having to return a router. And there's no, additional contract that you have to have in your name. You show up and it works property wide. So
yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, that's great. So your team, I know, leans on AI behind the scenes, but your support model is real people answering the phones in under 35 seconds. How do those two things work together?
Yeah, we work really hard to ensure that they're not in tension. I always tell people we're a technology company that's obsessed with human connection, and AI is phenomenal at watching. So it monitors networks around the clock, it spots patterns, it predicts failures, analyzes sentiments across thousands of support conversations, and that helps to train our teams. But humans really are irreplaceable at caring. So when your internet is down and you have a 9 a.m. presentation and you don't want to negotiate with a bot, you want a person who says, I've got you. So we use AI to make our humans faster and better informed, but never to replace the moment of human contact. And that's why a human still answers when you call in under 35 seconds at Elauwit.
Yeah.
But another example, I'm sorry, you say AI, and then I'm like,
no,
AI,
please, go on.
Talk about it. Another example, of how we're using AI at Elauwit to improve business productivity and the customer experience. So it's not, our business is, we're not selling directly to residents, we're selling directly to owners and operators. So we've got a large buyer's journey there. But one example of using AI there is, before it would take 3-4, a lot of weeks in order for us to be designing and pricing a community network. Every network that we design is bespoke to that community, and there's a lot of different hardware and moving pieces that go into scoping that. And so, like I said, that used to take, more than 3 weeks. So now we're using AI to really compress big chunks of that. So we have a proposal generator that we made completely in-house. It takes the really complicated math that goes into a bid and all the different financial options, and it helps to really visualize them better so that the customer can understand what we're offering them a lot easier, and it makes it just so much quicker. It's incredible. So that's just another example of how we're using AI at Elauwit to not only improve the resident experience for our end users, who are the residents, but also the customer journey and the buyer's journey for our customers.
Yeah, that's really cool. And as an AI expert, what's your advice for others who are just dabbling or thinking or knowing that they need to bring AI into their business, but might not even be sure where to start?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a mindset, first of all. So if you're really passionate about something, AI really shrinks the gap between wanting to build it and being able to build it. I'm a really huge advocate for, if you're not technical, that's actually to your advantage using AI. I promise it is. I think a lot of people get scared because they think they're not technical, so they can't use AI, and that is not at all the case. I really feel that the person who understands the business and can build with AI is really exceptionally valuable right now. They already know what needs to be built. They don't need to be told the business requirements. And that's truly all you need is a really good understanding of what your business needs and what needs to happen. And then if you can communicate that to AI in natural language, you're off to the races. So
yeah, that's great. Now, I know a lot of people are kind of worried that AI, and you touched on this a little bit a minute ago, that AI is replacing things, and mainly it could be replacing creativity. But you see that differently. Tell us why and how that might not be true.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a battleground on if AI is creative or not, and then and you'll see that a lot. If you're on social media, whatever you're on LinkedIn. There's a huge conversation about whether or not AI is creative or not, and you see a lot of AI slop stuff that you can clearly see as AI. There was clearly not a lot of time or care taken in creating that. But before I kind of go into this, let me say, because I don't want to sound like a blind cheerleader, there are a lot of issues with AI. So a lot of issues I'm personally concerned about: the environmental cost, what it's going to do to the job market sooner rather than later, regulation that's not keeping up, a shrinking pool of people who get to decide, where the technology goes. And there are IP concerns, especially when it comes to AI being creative and using AI for creative purposes. But that said, on the creativity front, I do think that we have a little bit backwards on AI. I would say that people are not as creative as they think they are. And I say that with a lot of love, as someone who spent 6 years as a copywriter and associate creative director in an agency setting. Every day my brain felt like a sponge being wrung out of all of my creative juices, having to write hundreds of, headlines a day. And once you go through that process, I think you really start to understand how truly original ideas are actually pretty rare. So the theory of relativity, natural selection, all of that's actually pretty rare. What most humans do on a daily basis to be creative is really associative thinking. So we're recombining concepts, so we're adapting solutions, we're sifting through, everything we've seen and learned, and we're producing ideas that are new to us. And I think it's that kind of thinking that AI is exceptional at. So a skilled AI user, I think someone who can iterate and go back and forth and pushes, can absolutely be producing really highly creative work. But my hope isn't to win an argument on if AI is creative or not. It's more that I hope my perspective helps to empower people to create using AI. And I think it's a really exciting time because creativity has always had barriers. If you don't know how to paint, then the visual that's in your head, it stays in your head. If you're not a trained writer, then that next great plot it goes nowhere. You don't write a book. If you can't code, then the app that you imagined, it never exists unless you have $100,000 to pay a developer to bring it to life for you. But not anymore. The space between the idea that's in your head and it existing in reality is shrinking, every day. AI doesn't replace creativity. I really feel like it's a catalyst to creativity when you look at it that way. So sorry. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Hopefully that answers your question.
No, you did. And I think you explained that beautifully, because I am one of those people, I can't paint, right? Like I consider myself creative, but I have such a hard time getting it from here out. Yeah. And using AI as a tool, as kind of the conduit between my brain and then whatever the medium is, it has been so helpful, because I can just say my thoughts, disjointed, whatever. This is what I'm thinking, but I don't know where I'm going with it. And then, I need help. And then using that as a tool to help frame it and then be able to verbalize it and then put it out there into the world. I think you explained that beautifully. That was a great TED Talk. Thanks.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the magical part of AI.
Yeah, absolutely. So with talking about AI specifically in multifamily, with tools like smart locks, leasing bots, predictive maintenance, what do all of those tools quietly depend on in the background?
Well, the network, of course, Carrie.
There we go.
So every smart lock, leasing bot, thermostat camera, it all depends on your Wi-Fi. So AI tools lose a lot of their value if the network that they run on isn't dependable, and if the people managing that network are nowhere to be found. So that's kind of, another great reason to ensure that you have control over the quality of that network by owning, the managed Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I mean, you're reducing maintenance calls and things like that. If the network works, then the thermostat is going to work, which that is scary when the network goes down and then your thermostat goes down too, especially here in Arizona. That's scary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're like, okay, so get someone on the phone.
We're all going to suffocate. Yeah, that's awful.
Yeah. So looking 5 years out, what does the best connected community in America look like to you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's something that we get closer to every day. But the best connected community has a network that's invisible, so where residents never think about Wi-Fi because it just works. And if something does happen, maybe a raccoon named Jimothy breaks into a room and eats some cords, then someone's there to fix it before the frustration sets in. And then I think behind the scenes, what will continue to get better over the next 5 years is how proactive and predictive everything becomes. So that's something that we're really staying ahead of the curve on here at Elauwit, is the AI monitoring the network constantly with infrastructure ready to handle whatever device shows up next. So ultimately, the best network is one that nobody notices.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. And as you think about your journey, from outside the industry in, do you have any advice for aspiring leaders who, want to be where you are, or have this role and the freedom to be building things like you are and developing and engineering behind the scenes? What advice would you give?
Just stay curious and don't wait for somebody to allow you to do something. And especially with AI, if you can create the solution, don't wait for the permission to do that. Come show up to the meeting with the solution, even if it wasn't your job. And again, just continue to stay curious.
Yeah, I love that. And where are you educating yourself on these things? Just everywhere? Are there specific places? Or like, how are you feeding your own curiosity?
Yeah, there's so much information out there, and primarily I spend a lot of my educational time hours these days staying up to date on AI. I follow several people on LinkedIn. I follow countless different newsletters. I do have a Claude agent set up that analyzes all the newsletters that land in my inbox every morning. It kind of pulls out things that it thinks that I want to see, or maybe that I've missed. But it's really it's hard to escape the educational aspect of it right now. You just have to take the time to be engaging with it.
Yeah, there's a lot out there. Are you seeing misinformation out there?
I think there's a general misinformation problem. But I think in terms of like misinformation when it comes to AI, what I see is people saying that it doesn't work or it's not reliable for something, when it's truly just a user error on that. I can tell that they don't truly understand prompt engineering, or they've missed something in that regard. And so that's really the only misinformation that I see. Other than that, it's really just information overload.
Yeah, for sure.
So much to keep up with.
Yeah, I believe that. Okay, anything that we didn't touch on? Any final thoughts about Elauwit? We're so excited to have you guys at the summit. I can't wait to see you in person. Any final thoughts for our audience?
I think if you take away, one thing, it's just that the internet in your community is infrastructure to invest in, and it's something you can control that's better for the residents, better for the onsite teams, and better for the asset all at once. And there are some really great providers out there who are great at serving communities. Elauwit is just one of them. We're a great publicly traded national provider, and I'd love to share more with anyone who's interested while we're all together. Same goes for AI. I'll probably talk your ear off about that one, though. But I can't wait to meet you all, and hopefully a few llamas in person.
Yes, they will be there with bells on, probably literally. So we're very excited about that.
Can't wait.
Yeah, thank you so much for spending the time today. This was a great conversation.
Thank you, Carrie. I appreciate your video at the beginning. That was fantastic.
We'll wait for it to hit number one on the charts. We'll be watching its rise.
Excellent.
I love that. All right, thanks, Katie, so much.
Thanks, Carrie. Take care.
For everyone listening and watching, the Multifamily Women's Summit is where conversations like this one continue in person. So make sure you get registered today for the summit. You can do that at multifamilywomen.com. You can also watch all of our podcasts and get all of the information you need there. So thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next show.